The Shy Diesel Extravaganza is underway in Terre, Haute, Indiana, and the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League is giving you action from the premier diesel tractor class tonight with the ARP Pro Stock tractors. After a hard-charging start to the season, ripping off 6 podiums, Jack Mays has since slipped a little, leaving a small window open for Kevin Masterson and the River Rat. The billet binder still has a hefty lead over the field with 6 rounds remaining on the season, but will need to get back to early season form to maintain that top spot. It's the biggest diesel event in the nation. Don't go anywhere. The Shy Diesel Extravaganza starts now. Welcome to Terre, Haute. It's time to go truck and tractor pulling here with the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League. This is the Super Clean Shy Diesel Extravaganza presented by Lucas Oil Products. We'll be covering the Pro Stock tractor category here tonight extensively. Ken Stout and Leslie Mears to call the action for you. The 10,000-pound Pro Stockers are so cool. They're a pricey class if you think you want to jump in here and play with the big dogs on the Champions Tour, but boy, there is just nothing any cooler.
And this is the top tier of diesel tractor pulling, 10,000 pounds, 680 cubic inch max, and that's pretty much it. Of course, they've got a wheelbase requirement that they can't exceed out there, but other than that, the sky is the limit, and it's amazing to me just the heights that these guys will go with technology to try to produce more power, and they're pushing the limits all the time.
Mickey Shorter will be our test puller on the Buck Eater 2. First guy to hook, let's find out how things are set up. And he's going to throw a big number up on the board right off the bat at 329 and 68. The John Deeres have ruled this class for a number of years, but don't tell that to Jack Mays on the billet binder, who's leading with an international.
Yeah, and he's just really trying to hold on here through the end of the season with so many hooks left. But of course, Mickey, a former champion in the category, and we talk about pushing the edge of technology. He's getting it done out here with the cast rear end, which is the older style, and we're going to see a lot of the tractors in the category with the planetary rear end, which is a little bit more efficient, and they feel like they can pour a little bit more power into the ground and get a lot more grip with that. So even though he has not made that technological jump, of course, which has a huge price tag on it as well, he is still out here competing and doing business.
And it does look like they're going to change up that sled just a bit, put another one of those suitcase weights in it. And that, of course, means Mickey Shorter will have to pull again, and he'll fall back somewhere deeper in the category. Here's a look at the pulling order.
Man, so many heavy hitters in here. You've got Brad Moss on the Money on Black driving for the Hurricane Motorsports team. Of course, Don Maskerson, who is awesome out here. Jack Wishmeyer, who's had some success as of late. And then, of course, when you get down to the bottom of the category, some guys that have come on strong here lately. Kevin Masterson in the River Rat, Rob Russell in the Workhorse, lining things out. And, of course, Peter Norton is gaining more knowledge with every single hook in this category, just making waves.
Backing up that beautiful-looking 4620 is Tim Stone. It's called the Rolling Stone. Leslie had a chance to speak to him a little bit earlier. Not chasing points this year.
Well, the Pro Stock class is known for pushing limits, and that's what you guys did this year, Tim. And so talk a little bit about some of the expiring of the parts that you've had inside the engine by pushing those limits this year.
Yeah, the turbocharger technology has gotten a little better over the winter, and people have updated, and it kind of pushed limits on the bottom end of our engine, and we missed part of the season because of that, and took a while to get parts back and get everything going, and missed a couple good hooks. The Hillsboro really hated to miss that, but that's probably one of the big ones that we hated to miss. But back at it now, and been out a couple times, and things holding together. So.
And it just goes to show you how hard these guys are working as the technology advances, and they tear up parts and pieces. They're small teams, and they've got to do it around their jobs at their farms, and try to make ends meet here and get back out to a hook. It takes a little bit of time sometimes, and it cost him a couple of hooks this year. And Tim Stone, now our test puller, the first one to hook with that new weight in the sled, 314 and 22. I would think that he would keep that. That's another really good number, especially since the addition of the weight.
Well, and we have to think about not just 2,000 pounds going into the box. I mean, by the time it gets to the top end, it's probably more like 8,000 or 10,000 pounds of rolling weight by the time it comes up the rails and trips the pan sinks into the ground with that extra weight on it, those grouser bars really digging in, and he's lugging and chugging out to the end with it. It is quite significant, although it seems small.
Here's a look at the points as we were talking about Jack Mays doing a great job with that international called the billet binder. How about that? A 44-point lead over Kevin Masterson, who you said is coming on strong, and for sure he is. Just 2 hooks ago, grabbing a win, but boy, Jack Mays won on a stretch with 3 wins consecutively and added a couple of second-place finishes to that. So 5 consecutive podiums for him to stretch that points lead out, but it is far from over. There's a lot of pulling yet to be done this season. As we take a look at the money on Black Machine, currently 3rd in the points, but not Brad Moss driving it. Peter Norton.
Yeah, Brad was on his way here with the tractors and had a failure with his toter, and so Peter had to send another truck to get the tractors. Brad wasn't able to make it, so this will be the first time this season that Peter Norton has driven this tractor.
And he does a fabulous job. A former champion inside of the Super Farm category is Peter Norton. And boy, that experience comes in handy as he posts a 325.01 to take over the lead.
Yeah, and just a nice, smooth, consistent run. And it was really crazy this afternoon because I was riding around the pits. I was looking for guys to interview, and I was looking for Brad. And I was like, hey, where are Peter and Brad at today? These guys did not get here until the middle of the pull. And so Peter Norton was so stressed out back there about getting his tractors here because he was on site and he had to wait for one of his drivers to bring them into the grounds. And so for him to have such a successful run after all that stress is just amazing.
Pretty cool. These guys just keep digging, and you love to hear those stories, and the camaraderie as we take a look at our previous winners here at Terre, Haute. And yeah, take a look at the River Rat right there, doing an incredibly good job. Back-to-back wins here in 2018, and General Tire is going to give us a flashback.
You know, and it would be great for Kevin Masterson if he could replicate last year's pulls here this weekend. It would definitely gain him a lot more points. And you know, there's just something about this track and Kevin that just makes it happen. You know, he doesn't live very far from here. He's probably about an hour south, closer to Evansville is where he's from. And so he just really picks it up well, knows the dirt. I think by this time in the season, he's got kind of all that experimentation out of his system because he's a guy that likes to kind of throw things at the tractor and see how it will react to try to make changes, and just very, very progressive when it comes to trying to get the best out of his machines.
If we go back to 2017, Kevin Masterson on the River Rats actually won 3 of the last 4 hooks here. That's extremely impressive as we take a look at the reigning champ from 2018. This is the Tinker Toy, and this is Kevin's father, Don.
Yeah, and this is at Hillsboro, Wisconsin, and he takes 3rd place here, and so it just goes to show you can never count out the former champ. He's very quiet and reserved in the pits, not a lot to say all the time, just kind of keeps his watchful eyes on the track, but every once in a while he'll hit you with the zinger. Well,
and we've got to take a look at the previous 4 hooks because he's been on the podium in 3rd place the last 4 hooks consecutively. He is slowly and silently sneaking his way up the points board. Another great looking hook here for Don Masterson, and he'll turn in a distance of 319 and 85 pretty early yet inside of this category to find out where that will end up, but certainly seems respectable at this point.
Yeah, definitely The money spot on the track right now is on that right-hand sideline. That's where we saw Norton have success with Money on Black, and of course where we're seeing the Tinker Toy spot the sled. But at the end of the night, when we look at the distances for the top 10 in the Pro Stock category, most of the time you're going to find that top 10 within 5 to 7 feet of each other. So man, there's a lot of room out there between first and second for tractors to stack it in.
We'll take a quick break. There's a look at your top 3, and we'll be right back.
The Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League is brought to you by General Tire. Anywhere is possible. K&N, superior airflow, superior performance. And by Lucas Oil, made in America, sold to the world.
We're about an hour or so outside of Indianapolis here at the Super Clean Shy Diesel Extravaganza presented by Lucas Oil, the town of Terre, Haute, and Vigo Fairgrounds. And coming here for years and years, always one of the stops here on the Champions Tour. Barely getting by is the name of the tractor. Jack Wishmeyer kicked the season off with a win. Comes in here 6th in the points. And Jack's going to miss it here a little bit. Surprise, 300.11, 25 feet short of where he needs to be here tonight.
When it looked like he used some brake early on the run to keep it from the center of the track, because it looks like he takes a little bit of a right-hand turn very, very quickly. You can see he's pointed towards the left-hand side of the track, and then I just think he stabs that brake, and it kind of upsets the apple cart here for him. And once he hits that brake, it kind of wobbles those tires, and so he locked one up, and then he could never get them planted back evenly after he does that. And you can see it kind of shimmy shake in the rear end as he's kind of lifting the front end, unloading, reloading those tires down the track. I mean, it was a split-second decision that he had to make because that's the path that he wanted to keep it in. But sometimes you just don't know how much it's really going to upset things and upset how the tires are hooked up to the track.
Mike Everson out of Belleville, Wisconsin, the first red tractor we've seen so far tonight with that Massey Ferguson. Wow! And it's in a bunch of pieces now. That was a violent explosion out of that V8. Wow, catastrophic.
Man, I just hate to see that happen. And, you know, that's the thing with these V8s. They're very, very contentious. And, you know, we saw it with the Trailblazer at Goshen, Indiana, that they had mechanical failure during the end of their run. But I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that close to the starting line.
Man, I mean, it absolutely explodes. It just transferred that entire explosion all the way back through the pipes. It almost looked like 2 the way it went off.
You hear 2 bangs out there. And then it's always interesting, too, because you don't ever see fire like that out of a diesel machine either. And so I wonder if maybe there was some kind of error with the water injection, and then maybe it got too hot in there and the water injection didn't turn on, and that grenaded the engine.
Whatever the case, his evening is done with a distance of 71 and 26 as we take a look at Cody Shea and the Red Edge Pro. The Farmall finished up second at the tough pull of Henry and comes out here and will jump into second at 320.06.
And, you know, I talked about the water injection turning on. At the very beginning of the pull, you see just a little bit of fire coming out of the stack, and that's from all the heat that's built up inside these engines. And so what the water injection does is they spray it on the sidewalls of the cylinders, and then there's also different points on the air intake where they spray that so that the water goes into the engine, also to help not only cool down the sidewalls, cool down those cylinders, but put out that fire and help create that good horsepower with good cold air, in addition to, of course, the intercooler. So if you don't have that, you're going to have highly excessive engine temperatures in there, which could cause that detonation like we saw in the Sleipner.
So we're off and running here with the Pro Stock category. There's a look at your top three. It'll get even tighter as we progress along. Plenty of tractors yet to come. Once again, we're back here at the Super Clean Shy Diesel Extravaganza presented by Lucas Oil Products. As you can see here, a two-track pull at Terre, Haute. Plenty of pulling action for all the fans as we continue on here with our 10,000-pound Pro Stock category. It will be Andrew Boyd aboard the Green Streak, the legendary Green Streak, I might add.
Yeah, and he experienced extreme highs and mid-range lows at Hillsboro with a win and then a finish outside the top 10.
.289 and 89 for the tractor that's been on the podium here a couple of times, and unfortunately, just not a good effort here tonight.
You know, I really thought these guys had their program figured out. You know, after Goshen, they put on a new set of tires, and that made all the difference for them and helped them get a second place at Evansville, and then a fourth at Altamont, and then a big win at Wapakoneta. And, you know, tire technology has been something that everybody has been talking about. And so I don't know whether maybe they've changed a little bit of their turbo program, because I know that's something that they've been working with all year as well, but they've got to get everything to kind of jive in order to get the best out of their machines.
Coming up next will be another Boyd tractor. This will be Mike Boyd aboard the Green Streak X, and did an awesome job here. If you go back 2 years to 2017, as he put it on top of the box, General Tire is going to show it to us.
And of course, showing his true colors there with the experimental on there. He's just shortened it to X for now. But so much steam coming right out of the gate. Gets an amazing hole shot and just lets the tractor drift and hook up so hard there. Love that old school 60/30 sheet metal on there, kind of representing. And now, of course, going with the more racy sheet metal here, just upgrading just a little bit. And a lot of the reason that the guys do that is because they've got more room under the hood for all the things that they're trying to fit underneath there versus the old school sheet metal.
And he's going to miss it here by a little bit as well at 308 and 94.
A really nice, good, smooth run, though. I thought once he left the line, though, that he was going to have that really good balance that he needs on the tractor with the weighting, but doesn't quite get the front end up high enough there. We're looking for 12 to 14 inches, and you can see probably more like 4 or 8, so just a little bit heavy on the nose out there. Maybe move a few 100 pounds back, and he'll get that. But he was in a good position after Andrew's run back-to-back to read the track and to have good data to try to put in a good hook.
And sometimes I wonder, when I see a hook like that that looks pretty good, but it doesn't yield the results, you wonder if maybe they just didn't pick a gear that would build enough ground speed to charge down through there at the very end as well once that sled tops off. So a couple of different options there for these guys to come out and do good, as once again, General Tire is going to give us another flashback.
We'll go back here to the Beyond Limits tractor in Goshen, and man, this was a heck of a pull for them, because you can see they're on an amazing wild ride, and then at the very, very end, they blow the exhaust manifold, and so that's the big detonation for them. But you can see that they were making waves here. I don't think he was quite finished when that happened, and still just an amazing run. We actually put him out for several pulls trying to get it fixed and back together.
Ended up finishing second that evening. but very exciting for all the fans. Talk about fireworks at the end of the hook.
Yeah, not the ones that those pullers want to see. Those are really expensive
Expensive
fireworks.
one, yeah, for sure. Beautiful Massey Ferguson. Here we go. And I love watching those guys drive. The front end way up in the air, and they're just steering the devil out of that thing, trying to get it to move one way or the other. Of course, very difficult to do so. They'll use those independent brakes if they really need to move it. But a solid effort here, 321 and 72. That is good enough to jump up into second place.
Yeah, and you can see a much better job here on weight placement. And look how that front end just hangs out there and just dangles, just barely dances on top of the dirt there towards the end of the run. And you also saw the huge sachet by the sled back there. And so that makes a big difference for him. But a great hook here, good balance, good weighting here, a great gear selection. Gets a little bump from that sled and it kind of slips sideways on him there, digging those grouser bars in hard to the side, which is going to detract from his distance.
So helmet off and hat on, job well done as he jumps up into the top three. And there's a good look at Dustin Hart's name as he'll currently sit in second place. Plenty of great tractors yet to go, though. Once again, welcome back here to Terre, Haute, Indiana. As we mentioned before, just about an hour west of Indianapolis, an old town with a lot of history.
Yeah, and it's really evolved over the last several years, seeing lots of new restaurants, a cute little coffee shop. There's a great donut place here. Of course, got to talk about Larry Legend,
right?
His home over here. Of course, the Sycamores, where he attended Indiana State University. And so always good to bring it back old school here with some history at Terre Haute.
Yeah, just one of those cool old Midwest towns, and certainly well worth the stop. This is the Super Clean Shy Diesel Extravaganza presented by Lucas Oil Products. Fans love their truck and tractor pulling here in the Midwest. Very knowledgeable group. They'll keep a close eye on this tractor called the Revelation Pro, another international inside of the field. Boy, I mean, just about as patient as you could be, intently watching those gauges, I'm sure, keeping an eye on the level of boost, because you want to slide that clutch out and maintain that boost level without it falling down. You let the clutch out too quick, it's going to pull the motor down, you lose all the boost. So he tried everything he could. Unfortunately, he's going to be a bit short here tonight.
Yeah, and I was really surprised to see him kind of continue the run, because you could tell that the tractor just really wasn't cooperating with him. And so we do have a rule that if you get out of the throttle and you stop and you've got some kind of issue before the 100-foot mark, you can give it a second go. And so I wonder if now he's maybe kind of second guessing that, not kind of getting out of it early and giving it another shot on the starting line to try to get a better hole shot.
Here comes our point leader, Jack Mays, on the billet binder. And as we talked about before, he went on a streak here just a few hooks ago of putting that thing up on the podium for 5 consecutive hooks, including 3 wins. And General Tire is going to show us his win here at Goshen.
And it's 3 wins in a row, and the second one of those was Goshen. He picked up the first one at Henry, and these are all difficult tracks that give the seasoned veterans in the class fits. And so for him to come out here with the International and kind of show everybody how it's done is pretty impressive. I think we have to remember, though, with Jack Mays, that his dad Stuart out there, of course, working on it with him, doing the tuning. His crew chief is a former champ in the category. And so he's got a lot of knowledge of these tracks and how to pull out here with him, and some guidance behind the scenes.
You know these guys got to love upsetting those green tractor fans, though. On a great effort here, doing exactly what he needs to do. 3:22 and 63. It won't be enough to take over the lead, but it will take over second place.
Yeah, I spoke of it earlier. These guys closing the gap in there between that 3:19 of Don Masterson and the 3:25 of Money on Black that is your leader. And I think what's so impressive about Jack is that he's just been really smooth out here on the track. And, you know, I talked to him earlier about what it's like to kind of be out here on the road with his dad. And he said, you know, it's awesome. You know, we're in the hauler for long periods of time, you know, because they live out in Missouri. And so we get a chance to catch up. We talk about the farm. We talk about school. Of course, we talk about the tractor a lot since we're in this points lead. And so it's just really a bond that's been strengthened, you know, over the course of the last couple summers traveling together.
Beautiful tractor for sure, and a great effort as he disconnects from the sled, and that will bring up the Whiskey Wild machine, which was on the podium here 1 year ago, finished up in third place and kicked the season off with a second place finish at Tampico, and comes in here fourth in the points. Leslie spoke to him.
There's a couple different driving styles here in the Pro Stock class. Some guys just dump the clutch right off the line and try to let it hook up. Others drive it out of the hole. So, Corey, what works best here for the Whiskey Wild?
For our team, it seems like we try to drive them off the line, try to actually control how the tractor hooks up to the track. As anybody knows, it's hard to do once in a while. We're getting to a point where that's a big game in this class, is getting it hooked up with the horsepower we're making.
Yeah, and you said you've tried the other method and it just doesn't work. So what is it, you know, kind of about that style that works best for the Whiskey Wild?
You know, I don't know. We've tried it the other way, tried coming off the line real hard, and the tractor just doesn't seem to be as happy. It's not as controllable. It turns it into a little more of a guessing game, and sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. We feel like we're more consistent driving it the other way.
You know, and that horsepower that he's talking about they're making, you know, we're talking about, as I've mentioned earlier in the season, turbos at or in excess of 6 inches. I mean, it's an expensive piece, and it's just moving a ton of air to help them create all that horsepower.
And pretty easy to see that he missed the setup tonight. A little more nose weight would have helped him. You could actually hear the RPM zinging up and then pulling back down as that front end did get high enough to kind of unload those rear tires, if you will, and then it would load them back up. Just not conducive for the big number you need here tonight.
I think it's really interesting, too, that he pointed the tractor towards the left-hand side of the track, and no one's done that yet. And so trying to get that good hole shot, trying something a little bit different as we see guys try to stack in with each other to gain some information, you know, for the team back there. And just, again, try something different. You don't want to be like everybody else and just kind of stack it in there. You've got to take a risk and make a move, and that's what he did.
Looked like he might have used a little bit of brake there right at the very end, too. And, of course, that will really detract from your distance. There's a look at your top three. It's ever-changing.
The Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League is brought to you by Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance. Super Clean, not just clean, super clean. And by Optima Batteries, the ultimate power source.
The Pro Stockers are putting on a show here tonight at the Super Clean Shy Diesel Extravaganza presented by Lucas Oil. Welcome back to Terre, Haute, Indiana. Good look at the pits out there. A number of different classes putting on a show for the fans as Travis Coons comes up here on the Massey Ferguson known as the Trailblazer. This can be a very expensive sport. You come out here with these power plants and you tax them. You put all the power through them you can, and General Tire is going to show us in this flashback how bad it can go.
Yeah, this is at Goshen, Indiana once again. And this is the first time that we're seeing the Trailblazer come back. And just check out how hot those header pipes are when he literally blows the side shield off the tractor with that detonation. And, you know, of course, still on fire there. You know, I feel bad for these guys because they're just throwing everything at it that they can to try to get the V8 lined out. And they don't have any data. You know, when it came to using the small blocks versus the big blocks for the technology in the sport, there was lots of data to go off of, and a lot of people that had used those for trial and error. And they're kind of in a world of their own here with the Massey Ferguson, because nobody has run that before. Nobody's figured out how to make this V8 work. So, you know, just really a tribute to the team for coming out here, trying something different, and keeping at it, even though they haven't had the success that they really want and they long for on the team.
You gotta love the spirit, man. They are not afraid to keep trying. He comes out here and puts that thing to the test once again, and the distance at a bit over 3:01.
Yeah, and for these guys, that's a victory because they spun it in on the track. And so that's what you want to do when you come back. You kind of want to take it easy. You're not going to put it on kill right away and try to go out there and set the world on fire. And so you want to just kind of make those laps, collect that data. And I think something we haven't talked about really here in this particular class, and you don't think about it with the tractors, is that most of these guys run highly sophisticated data acquisition systems, and they're measuring all kinds of points of data, especially EGTs out here. And so they want to know those temps inside the cylinders. They want to know those gas temperatures so that they can go back and make gradual changes to make progressions. And that's what's great for the Trailblazer team. They're going to have all that good data.
This is Ken Couch on the tractor called High Cotton. And he goes 294 and 84. Sounded like it might have lost a cylinder right at the very end, but that's a great example of what you talked about before, the old sheet metal there, and you can see how narrow that tractor is up on the nose of it to contain that engine versus some of the newer sheet metal that is a good bit wider.
Yeah, and it really looked like it had a lot of, blow by, and it was getting a lot of oil past the rings there on the bottom end. You can see kind of that smoke coming out, and then it turns a lot more black at the end of the run. But just trying something different out here too, of course, with that cross-track method. But I don't think that's going to work here tonight. The center of the track just doesn't seem to be very solid, and that's where they get into that little bit of tire wobble and shake, and they're unloading and loading the tires.
Up next will be the Cotton Pickin' Deer. This one driven by Christopher Couch.
Yeah, and this tractor's a threat often, and so just show up kind of out of the blue at a place like Terre, Haute here, and then kind of steal one from the guys on the podium.
And just about the same distance that Ken Couch went, so goes Christopher Couch, 291.
Yeah, and it looks like with these runs so close together that the team's not having a lot of time to share that data because, there's just a minute or two between each run in real time out here. And so that's not enough time to get from the top end of the track back down to the starting line to really have an extensive conversation about, hey, how'd the tires hook up? How did your gear feel? What do you think about your weight? What about my driving style out of the hole? Should I make some changes to the hitch? And that's just 5 of the variables that these guys have to talk about and quick changes that they can make, back there in the staging lanes to try to get a better effort out of their machine.
That's a look at the leader cone, and that's where Kevin Masterson is hoping he can drive by. Kevin second in the points, has 2 wins under his belt, including just 2 hooks ago. Leslie had a chance to speak to him.
So last year at Terre Haute, it was a clean sweep for the River Rat. Of course, this is a new year, and you've had a lot of success this year, Kevin. And so what do you think your chances are of making the repeat of that sweep this year?
We'll just do the best that we can. We'll take things as they come, and we'll see how it turns out.
You've really done a good job this year of kind of figuring the tractor out and getting it to run so strong. So what are the things that you've been working on in the shop to make that happen?
I rolled in rod bearings just to make sure that I was safe.
That's kind of a big deal because we know you're pushing these things to the limit.
Yes, we are.
And of course, his father, the reigning champion side of the category, as we talked about before, a little bit earlier in the show, he's won 3 of the last 4 hooks here at Terre Haute. That's no easy feat. The guy he's trying to get around is Jack Mays and the billet binder, but unfortunately he will not get that done. Mays put 3:22 and 63 up on the board. This, a distance of 3:18 and 65, will put him in the 5th position.
And you can see that the left sideline of the track is just a little bit choppy over there. And so these guys really wearing in the right sideline. But I think to get around some people and kind of change things up in the order, it's going to have to be a cross-track effort, because we've seen that there's good ground on the top end of the track where these guys are finishing on that left-hand side. They've just got to get the good start on the right and then finish over there.
4 tractors yet to go inside of the category. Peter Norton has been hanging on since the top of the class. Can he survive 4 more? Just 4 tractors yet to go here with the Pro Stock category at the Super Clean Shy Diesel Extravaganza presented by Lucas Oil Products. The first hook of the category, my apologies, second hook of the category was Peter Norton. Money on Black posted a distance of 325.01, and it still stands as the leader. Coming up next here will be Nick McCormick on the nasty stuff. Finished 3rd here, going back to 2017. And he's going to dig hard here, but he'll be well short. 295 and 86 for the International.
Well, I think he's going to prove me wrong here on that left side of the track with that run, to just show that it's really mealy over there, that there's just not a whole lot to grab a hold of, and that's kind of the problem. And so if it is going to be dry and dusty, those big tires are not going to sink in and get the big grip that they need from that footprint to kind of make waves out there. And you can just see how much dust and dirt he was kicking up against the buckboard of the sled, and that's not really what you're looking for here on this run. But kudos to him, man, for trying something different, making moves, and trying to shake things up.
Right? Why not? Just go for it. As Rob Russell will come out here next. On board the case, and it's called the Workhorse Pro. Another tractor was up on the podium here, but you have to go back to 2016 to find that one when he finished 3rd. Leslie had a chance to speak to him.
I tell you what, it's been a passion of mine since I can't remember. My father pulled in the 70s, and I actually started pulling some garden tractors in the early 70s, and on when I got 15, I started pulling bigger farm tractors, and I started on a major circuit back as early as 1986. And I was, 19 years old, and just, it's been in my blood forever. I took a hiatus for about 15 years to raise a family, got back in it about 6 years ago, and it's just something I can't quit.
Yeah, super passionate about it, and that's pretty much the theme for motorsports. Once you inject a little bit of that stuff into your veins, it is really hard to not come back. He was on the podium just 1 hook ago at Hillsborough, where he finished up in 2nd place, but he's going to miss the mark here tonight at 3:08.71.
Yeah, really fast run here for the Workhorse. Gets the front end early, but can't carry it all the way down the track. And, you talked about gear selection earlier, and some of the guys have 3 gears, some of the guys have 5 gears to choose from. It just depends on what their liking is and how many decisions they want to make. Personally, I'd only want 3 out there, because I think that I wouldn't want to have too many different options to choose from, because it would only make it harder.
It's pretty easy to overthink it, that's for sure. As you take a look at the fans, they're having a great time. Just a couple of tractors left inside of the category. This is called the Category 5. The guy behind the wheel is Peter Norton, our current leader. So he put that 325 up on the board, driving for Brad Moss at the top of the class. We'll see if he brings that same setup here. And if he did, it just did not work out for him. 301.05.
Well, and to be fair, they're two completely different tractors. And so he did pull one at the top of the class and one at the bottom. But even though you try to put the same engine in them and the same tires, maybe the same rear end, they're still going to react differently on the track because they're different chassis, different models out here. And so you do have that discrepancy. So the data isn't going to kind of transfer accurately from one to the other. And so it's really hard to pull at the beginning of the class and then replicate that at the end.
So there's a look at your top three. We have one tractor yet to go. Stay with us.
The Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League is brought to you by General Tire, anywhere is possible. Rhino Ag, born to lead. And by Lucas Oil, made in America, sold to the world.
Just one tractor yet to go here with the 10,000-pound Pro Stock category at the Super Clean Shine Diesel Extravaganza, presented by Lucas Oil. He kicked the category off as Mickey Shorter with the Buck Eater 2, went 3:29 and 68. And they said, yeah, let's put a little weight in that sled. So he dropped that hook and went down to the bottom of the order. We'll see if he can repeat it now. It would be a winning number if he could. And it looked like a fair amount of tire spin there early on. He will not get that big number at 299 and 47.
You know, just really tough to have to sit back there and wait and watch after you've been back here on the track, because now you have the data from your first run to look at. You've got the way that it felt and it handled. And now you've got to watch everybody else, and then you get to put that data into the mix to see how their tractors reacted, to try to find somebody that looked like yours to compare it to, and then make adjustments. I think it would have been better for him if he just dropped to the bottom and didn't have to make that first pull, so we wouldn't have as much data to look at.
So that'll wrap things up here with the Pro Stock category. As always, a great show from these guys and these incredibly beautiful tractors. In third place will be Dustin Hart. He's pretty much in the middle of the pack when he hooked. Let's talk to him.
So the Beyond Limits tractor ends up on the podium tonight, and it looked like you really did your homework and you had the tractor weighted awesome tonight.
Yeah, I feel like we had the tractor weighted pretty nice tonight. It carried the front end real nice. You know, we struggled this year on being consistent and carrying the front end nice, and it's nice to come out here and make a good run tonight.
Yeah, and especially after some of the mechanicals you had earlier, to pick up a podium feels really good.
Yeah, it does. You know, we're always constantly trying new stuff and R&D development for our company, and we're always trying new stuff. So with that comes breakage, but we'll get there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Here's a look at how they sort out, with Norton up top, followed by Jack Mays, our points leader, Dustin Hart, Cody Shea with the Red Edge Pro inside of the top five, and then the 2018 champ Don Masterson, followed by his son, who's second in the points. So this one far from over, with a lot of pulling action yet to go. Let's talk to second.
Well, the left side of the track seemed a little taboo tonight, but Jack, you guys decided to put it over there. What made you pick that side of the track?
We just watched a bunch of guys pick the right side and about go out of bounds. It didn't really look like they were gaining anything over there, so we thought, you know, maybe we'll try the left side. Maybe it'll work better for us, and we got lucky, and it did.
You know, your team has worked so hard and so well this year together to keep up this consistency. You know, you've got to be proud of the effort.
Yes, what we accomplished tonight would not be possible without the guys standing behind me, without DNR Pulling, Weimer Turbo, Hart's, Diesel, all those guys and more. I'm sure I'm leaving some people out, but they're a huge help, and without them, none of this would be happening right now. So thanks to them.
Congrats to Jack Mays as we take a look at the points here, finishing up in second. Kevin Masterson finished sixth, so 5 spots back from Mays. Will lose a little bit of ground on him now, 52-point gap. Peter Norton, Corey Bobb, and Andrew Boyd round out your top 5. Once again, let's go back down to the podium. This time we'll talk to our winner.
Well, Peter Norton picks up his first ever win in the Pro Stock category tonight on a tractor that you haven't driven in a long time, but it was just such a beautiful straight pass.
Yeah, I was real happy. We had a lot of troubles today, so it's kind of a bittersweet ending. We had some truck troubles and we're really late getting here. And Brad Moss, who has been wonderful to me, has driven the tractor most of the year, and we've just kind of taken turns back and forth, and he was unable to make it. So I ran it tonight, and tractor made a great pass. We've kind of changed some stuff, and it seems to be working, I think. So I want to thank Lucas and Shy Diesel for having this event. Thank my crew that goes with me and helps day in and day out. I want to thank my friends, the Boyds, for helping me today with some problems we had, and my friend Rob Russell today for some problems we had. And it just proves that, you know, the pulling family is awesome. If you need anything, they'll jump right in, and that's what makes pulling great.
Never miss a pull. Go to propulling.com/set reminder to add all of the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League airings to your personal calendar. Receive a calendar reminder minutes before each event airs.
It's one of our favorite stops on the Champions Tour to come here to Terre, Haute for all the great pulling action. Remember, for more information, you can always go to propulling.com and keep up with everything that's going on and an eye on that extensive schedule. Hope you enjoyed all the great action from the 10,000-pound Pro Stockers here rolling that black smoke out. For Leslie Mears, I'm Ken Stout. Thanks for watching the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League.